Hey, what's up, everybody? It's BDF44. So I made a video yesterday about signings. Some people got paid good money. Rudy Gobert made like 206 for 5 years, about 15 or something odd more $1 million than Anthony Davis's contract, same amount of years. And today, Luke Kennard got an extension with the Clippers. I'm not sure for how many years, but I believe it was for $64 million. The Clippers, I don't think they're making good decisions right now. Let me just put that out there. I'm a Laker fan, so watching the Clippers squirm and suffer is something that pleases me greatly. It fulfills my soul in such a way that makes me want to praise the Lord. It's a wonderful thing to see. For the vitriol and hatred that I have for that franchise and their fans, it warms my soul. But that's another aspect of my soul that is a GM mind, and if you follow me, you know that I take that pretty seriously as well, and that's an entirely different aspect of my brain. And that part of my brain gets disgusted by some of the stuff that I see in the NBA. It pertains to certain signings and certain situations. I try to make sense of it. And over time, I've learned to start to temper my expectations as it pertains to how teams handle their cap. Some GMs just aren't very good. Some owners are difficult, so they make it look like the GMs aren't really good, etc., etc. Some franchises have more prestige than others, so, players are going to have to pay for that, while some franchises aren't very good at all, so the franchises have to pay for that. So when you see structures of contracts and the number amount, the years, there's a lot of things that take into account that aren't really discussed on our day-to-day entertainment, sports entertainment, and that's where it gets frustrating for me. And I may have mentioned this before, but sports journalism has become so much about numbers as it pertains to how many people are viewing them. So they look for the sensationalized stories. They fabricate different points of views. I mean, I'm not saying nothing to you guys that you don't already know. We're all in this system together in the sports world. We know what the two major sports networks are about. They rarely teach the things that matter to us. The X's and O's of the game, how to become a good GM, how to look for the right things so you don't find yourself sounding irresponsible in your sports takes at the barbershop. They don't teach us that crap. They just give us pointers and sensationalized satire bullcrap to pay attention to. And a lot of times the average fan, of course, is just ignorant, and they don't know what to celebrate and what to be upset about, because we're not being informed by those who are in place to inform us. So, with that being said, the Luke Kennard contract, it's pretty bad, and the reason why it's pretty bad is not because he's not that great of a player or that his upside isn't that great. It's not that. I actually think Luke Kennard is on his way to being very good, and he'll probably outplay that contract, to be completely honest with you. The opportunities will be there because Kawhi, PG, they're going to get theirs, but the next option up is probably him. You got Marcus Morris on a $40 million 4-year contract. He's been known to be able to stretch the floor some. He can really score the ball when he wants to, but after that, they don't really have a whole lot of scoring on their bench. They don't have a lot of scorers on their team, so Luke Kennard is going to be able to flourish as the third option offensively, in my opinion, maybe third or fourth option, first man off the bench type role, whatever. So having him and locking him down gives them a consistency about their timeline. The only thing that I can say that I would look at and say that this is a solid thing is that the Clippers don't really have to worry about dealing with free agency anytime soon, with the exception of Kawhi Leonard, of whom they probably expect to lose. They have Luke Kennard, Paul George, and Marcus Morris all on multiple year contracts. So that can be a relief for a GM. Some finality, if that's a word. Some finite understanding of what you have to work with. It's always a good thing, rather than having a bunch of players at different spaces, no timeline, constantly trying to play checkers with with contracts and stuff, the Clippers won't have to worry as much about that as maybe most other teams, because most of their players are going to be under contract, and all for the same amount of time. So they know come 2022 or whatever that time is going to be, that's when they have to deal with everyone. So that gives you some understanding of what your timeline's like. The problem is with the Clippers situation is they are signing players that are not good enough for the contracts that they're given in theory. Like I said, could they outplay it? Yeah, I could see Luke Kennard playing up to 65. I could certainly see him playing up to that. He's going to get better. So that's that. Marcus Morris' contract, totally different story, man. I like Marcus Morris, kinda. I mean, I never was a Marcus Morris fan. I was more so Markieff guy. Between the Morris twins, I like the guy we got. So, and it's always been that way. It wasn't just like that since he became a Laker. I thought Markieff was a better player from the jump. He came out with the quicker start, and then Marcus came along and turned himself into a 3-and-D shooter. So because he was a three-point shooter, suddenly premium on three-point shots in this era, Marcus is touted and understood as the better player, but he never was the better player. He was just a better shooter. That was the only thing he was really better at than his brother was shooting, in my opinion. But who am I, right? But it is what it is. At the end of the day, the Clippers have locked themselves into some very, very, very expensive contracts. And you don't get the most out of your cap circumference when you give too much to too many. And that's what they've done. Them getting better is going to be difficult. They're going to have to find some Talen Horton-Tuckers. They're going to have to find some Kyle Kuzmas, some gems in the draft over the next several years, particularly in their big man spot, to help them along. Zubats, I like Zubats. I wish we didn't trade him. Certainly thought that was one of the worst trades, if not the worst trade in NBA history, giving him away for Mike Muscala and attaching Michael Beasley to that. It was the worst trade I'd ever seen, honestly. And the more I think about it, it still stands. That is the worst trade I've ever seen. So I don't want to sit here and say that there's anything about Zubats that I wouldn't welcome onto my team today, because I wish we had him. I never thought he should have been gone. It wasn't his fault. He's a damn Clipper. All of that stuff I take into account. But let's just be honest. For the way the game is played today, Zubats is an average center. He's average. Now, I love the fact that he shoots the free throw shot about as well as any guard in the league. He's a fantastic free throw shooter, and when he left our team, he was in the 90%. He was shooting like 90% from the free throw line. He's just utterly ridiculous. He has great defensive fundamentals as it pertains to standing and keeping his arms up, doing the verticality thing. He's really good at that. He can rebound the ball pretty well. He's a strong guy. He's gotten stronger over the years. He started off very, very weak for his size, but he's put on some really good strength over the last several years, and I like where he's headed. But do I look at him as a starting center? No. He's an Aaron Baines guy. He's in that category for me. Aaron Baines, Daniel Tice. Think about guys like that. Bismack Biyombo. Centers like that who are good. Would have been much better if they would have played in 2 or 3 eras ago. All of those guys would have been much better players if they could have played when Patrick Ewing was on the floor. When those guys, when the game was slower and you could dump it down to a big, and you're not asked to really run as a big, you're not asked him to shoot, not asking him to be very good from the line. Typical old school bigs. It's one of those, But you can find better. You can find a lot better than Zubats, than those guys, right? Now, I'm not saying anything about whether or not the Clippers should or should not pay Zubats. I don't know if they have any plans to extend him. That's not in the conversation as of yet. But what I'm saying is, because Zubats is not super great, they're going to have to find a big somewhere. And they don't have the money to pay for one. Not a real one. You know what I mean? Not a real big. They can go out and try to get somebody of that caliber. But at the end of the day, who are they going to run into? Jokic, Ayton, AD, Towns. You know what I'm saying? And keep naming the names. They keep coming. It's more of them. Even on nights like you got to face Portland, you got to deal with Nurkic. You go to Sacramento, you got to deal with Whiteside and deal with Bagley and deal with The other center that they got, who are Holmes, who's coming along. Like, every team has a bunch of bigs that they're excited about. You can't even go to Cleveland without dealing with Drummond. Like, let's be honest. Even the bad teams got bigs in 2021. And that's what I was trying to tell you guys about over the last several years, or rather over the last year or so, before this really started to become a thing. Bigs were coming. Bigs were coming, now they're here. So it's like, if you don't have one, a really good one, you're going to be on the other side of the game. You're going to be on the wrong side of the game. This small ball, space to floor, we only shoot stuff, it works for most of the game, but they always, and when I say they, I mean most teams, always have the ability to switch out of that and go big. Houston taught us that lesson last year. It just doesn't work in this era. You need to be able to do both. You need to be able to go small, and you need to be able to have a big lineup on the floor. And if you can't do both, your chances of you winning the championship are null. They just don't exist. So from where I'm sitting, the Clippers have done themselves no favors. And from where I'm also sitting, from this seat, I would say they're not going to win a championship. And if you're giving away all that money, what's the point? If you're competing with the Lakers, you're giving away all this money, and you don't have enough? Why not just not give people that money? Let some of those guys walk and build gradually so that you can put yourself in a position to actually be good. Not just be kind of good and capped out the game. Our GM has showed people, Rob Pelinka has showed people exactly what it looks like when you do it correctly. In my opinion, the Clippers are showing you exactly how it looks like when you do it incorrectly. It's as simple as that. I got to go back to work. I would talk to you guys a little longer, but that's what I got. Also, I want to talk about some inaccuracies that I may have had in some videos before. I listened to some of my videos. I was totally off. Taylor Horton-Tucker did not have a couple of games in a row with 30-something points. So if you go back and listen to those videos, I probably should just delete them. They were so inaccurate. Some of my worst work, I'm not going to lie. But I'm going to get more involved in the NBA. You already know how I operate if you've been following me long enough. Sometimes I just am not accurate because I don't do the homework I should do. I'll admit it. I'm one of those guys. I kind of go off the fly sometimes. But you come to my page not because I'm accurate, but because I'm going to give you things that you may not get elsewhere. And I'm very passionate about what it is that I'm talking about. So, as I grow, I hope to see this channel grow. And I thank you guys for clicking on my face. My name is BDF44. Thank you for watching. I'm out.